validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt up on the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher constantly, making my own climb. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. Whoa. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield.
Uh-oh. 1 second too late. There it is. How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. Still about 15 minutes late today, but, we're a little bit earlier than yesterday. Gotta wait for Steven because this show is for Steven. He asked me about this earlier this week. One of the members in the membership. So I said I was going to cover it. So as soon as I see him in the comment section, I'll be able to go full force. But in the meantime, I want to make sure that you guys remember that, hey, we go live every night of the week, and we do not let the sun rise without going live. So while we don't always start on time, we ask you guys to like and subscribe, and then hit those notification buttons and match the reaction buttons while you are here. Being live 7 nights a week, we cover a different topic every night of the week. Starting off with Sundays, we do questions and comments from the fans. Monday, we get Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday is about business and politics. So Monday, we talk about how politics negatively impacts your ability to make, save, and invest money. Then Tuesday, we discuss how to make money, save money, invest money, budget money, how to rethink your money. And then on Wednesdays, we give you guys information about different countries around the world to invest in. So you guys are going to love that. Tonight is Thursday night. We're going to be talking about several sides of code switches. So I want you guys to hang out, hang tight, and rock with us because we got a lot of information for you. One thing we recognize is that after Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we give you guys a lot of information about self-improvement, personal development, relationship topics, negotiation, socialization, building your brand. We've talked about promotions, raises, retirement packages, negotiating your severance packages, and then building your 20-year plan. So we got a lot of information that we provide to you guys that a lot of people don't think about that's already out there that can help you guys make more money, save more money, invest money in different ways, and just all around improve your standard of living. One of the goals that we have here is to not only build your financial life, but also improve your decision-making skills in your personal life, because every decision you make costs money, whether it's you deciding to spend money on something or you deciding to forego earning money in order to be somewhere else doing something that might actually even cost you money. Because even when you're doing something that doesn't cost you money, doesn't cost you additional money, when you decide not to make money in order to go do something that's free, you still lost money. So it's equivalent to spending money. People say time is money. I got a good example for you before we get started today about code switching. I have a buddy of mine, he's an Uber driver. He was driving. He typically makes about $20, $25 an hour as an Uber driver, sometimes more than that when he's got tips. And during the night, he ended up seeing a chick. Chick needed a ride. So he turned down rides for the rest of the night so that he could give this girl a ride. While giving the girl a ride, he then decided to stop off by a restaurant and get something to eat. Being a gentleman that he is, he actually bought her food. She didn't ask him to buy her food. She just said she was hungry. He was hungry too. He bought her some food. Now, he got her number, and the only other time she talked to him after that was when she needed a ride. But the principle of dynamic of the situation is that the 2 or 3 hours that he spent with her was $25 an hour that he gave up to go and spend time with her, which is a loss of $75. Then he went to like a KFC or something like that and spent like $25 between the two of them on something cheap, something simple. But the $25 that he spent on food and the $75 he walked away from to go hang out with this person who then ultimately only used him for a ride, he opportunity cost chose to throw away $100 that night for a stranger. These are the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis. I'm not going to just outright say that was a bad choice, but these are the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis. And these decisions cost us money. And I help you guys with rethinking about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it as it pertains to that. Because let's be real, you don't know how much money you're throwing away until you see how much money you've held on to, right? Because you work from check to check, you got money coming in a few days. You think that, everything's going to be A-okay. Then you get the money, you spend it on a bunch of stuff you probably shouldn't have spent it on. Now you're in a situation waiting for your next check, not having enough money to go from point A to point B, and always wondering what if until the next paycheck comes. But take, for example, like I had a situation earlier today. I was talking to somebody about some expenses. And then we actually analyzed the fact that there's only about $40 worth of stuff that actually needs to be paid for this month, really, right? And we have several $1,000s coming in and several $1,000s more coming in a couple weeks. And I was like, wait, look at how much there is accessible because everything's already done. Instead of pillar posts, instead of wasting, all we had to do was just organize, budget, save, invest, and we were good to go. So I want you guys to think about that as we continue on tonight's show. Steven, hopefully you got oh man, he probably didn't hit that notification button tonight because I had switched this show out for another show. So he's going to dive in and he's going to be like, oh man, I didn't get the notification. I know, because you asked me for code switching and I switched it with another show that you did hit the notification button on. So at some point, Steve is going to jump in because typically I give him another 20 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and get started with the main topic, but I'm going to give him another 20 minutes. And I might have to repeat some of these things. But I know that he's going to come in and be like, man, I wasn't notified about today. Yeah, because today you asked me, I think, middle of the week. Like, I think like a few days ago, you asked me about it. So that's why we're doing tonight's show. But if you imagine for a moment, man, I got to get me a soundboard because, you know, the dream sequence, I think that's a good chime in to start one of these hypothetical scenarios. I might even get like a Peter Griffin one that's really awkward, but either way, pay attention to this. You're in a meeting and you hear it, that voice, you know, it's your voice, but not quite. It's a little higher. The words are more clipped and professional jargon just rolled right off your tongue. It's called your work voice. Then when you get home, the mask finally drops. You're not just tired from being on a long day, you're exhausted. It extensively exhausted. You know what I mean? Extremely exhausted. I can't think of the right word for it. It's just like it's drained from the performance that you didn't even realize that you were doing. You do realize that a lot of the times men are held to the mandatory requirement to hold so much physical strength. Yet, the life and world that we live in has so much mental stress, strain, and it drives you to levels of mental fatigue that not a lot of people are aware of. I just realized this stuff is going hyper speed at the top of the screen. I'm like, what is the? Oh, it is. I was like, what is going on there? It is going super fast. Let me slow that down some. All right, back to it. I'm looking at this stuff speeding across the top of the screen. And I'm like, what the hell is that? See, because we're now in 1080p, somebody should have said something. Since we run in 1080p, you see stuff that you otherwise would not have seen when we was dealing with the show lagging. All right, let me get back to it. If you popped in, Steven, let me know. But you're only like 13 minutes after, so we barely touched the top of the topic. Now, when you experience this stuff, your thought changing who you are at work, how you speak, how you dress, and the stories that you tell was the secret to getting ahead, you know. And everybody is taught that, you know, change who you are at work. Don't be who you were on the street, on the block with your homies. Be a better version of yourself, right? A necessary evil for survival and success. So you've perfected the voice, mastered the talk, and played the part. But now that constant performance is leaving you feeling hollow, exhausted, and anxious. So what if I told you this strategy isn't just messing with your mental health? What if it's secretly sabotaging the very professional credibility that you've worked so hard to build? See, today we're pulling back the curtain to uncover the hidden costs of code switching that are piece by piece destroying you. Okay, so let's get on the same page. What is code switching really? It's the practice of adjusting your language, appearance, or behavior to fit into a different culture or professional setting. A lot of people attribute this to pretending like you're Black or the Black culture by going from being a preppy person to talking slang and having your clothes hanging off you behind and hats all jarred on your body and chains everywhere. That is one version of it. But code switching happens in a lot of other places. It's more than just switching from Spanish to English. We understand that as translations. In the workplace, it's about aligning yourself with the dominant and often unspoken rules of the game. There it is. Pretending that you have money when your ass don't. Special shout out to Michael. That's code switching. Also, pretending like you got your shit in order when your ass don't. Your family is full of chaos, but y'all pretend like y'all are the Addams family when you're really the Addams family. Just the chaotic side. You know, you try to put that Brady Bunch scenario together, and really you're living the life of OJ and Chris Benoit when nobody's looking. You know what I mean? Code switching happens in a lot of places. So for many people, especially those marginalized groups, Black employees, Hispanic professionals, young workers, or anyone who's ever felt like an other, you've ever been thrown into a group of individuals that considered you people, code switching isn't a choice. It's a survival mechanism. It's a strategy to navigate bias and just be seen as professional. It might look like a Black woman deciding not to wear her hair natural to an interview. And you're going to be on one of these, because I know there's a lot of women that swear to God, oh, I just do it because I like to make changes. Women change their hair because they're not proud of the hair that they have. They're not going to admit this, but it is the truth. Because if you were proud of the hair that you have, you would wear it as it is, style it up as it is. When you cover it with a wig, glue stuff, sew stuff, knit stuff onto your head, it is not projecting who you really are. No woman is going to want to accept that, and they're not going to want to agree to that. But if you wanted a change, like y'all watch me 365 days a year, my hair might be up, it might be back, it might be forward, it might be to the left, it might be to the right, but it is the natural hair. If I want to do something different, you might see it braided one day, you might see some plaits one day, but it is all 100% my head. It's not going to be something that I bought at the store that I can only wash and reuse for a couple times and I got to throw it away and buy me some more hair. It is whatever comes off of the root of my scalp, right? Now, the most of the women that we see, especially the ones that don't have naturally long hair, typically replace the fact that they're not satisfied with the length or texture of their hair and replace it with the length and texture of hair that they would prefer. That's a form of code switching. It's organized, disorganized, appearing that life is good when it sucks. Damn right. All variations of code switching. It might be an immigrant professional softening their accent to avoid being judged on their competence. And a lot of people want to speak fluently so that they can avoid being judged because of their heavy accent. Or it could be a young employee adopting a super serious and formal vibe just to be taken seriously by senior leaders. On the surface, it seems to work. Research has shown that this kind of adaptation can lead to more interview callbacks, especially for minority candidates who whiten their resumes. Right? A Cornell University study even found that Black employees who code switch are often seen as more professional by both Black and white colleagues. It's a tool for impression management, a way to signal that you fit in. And this is the seductive promise of code switching. Adapt and you will be rewarded with the job, the promotion, and the respect. But here's the catch. It's a double-edged sword. The very strategy that you use to get ahead is also the one that carves away at your soul. Because while it might often offer short-term gains, that long-term cost is going to be huge, leading to a psychological toll that many of us are just now starting to talk about. It says dress for success. But see, there's a whole huge difference, Michael, between dressing for success and pretending like you're successful. That's a whole different ballgame. Dressing for success, like you see me every day, button down shirt, patterns to match. Today we're matching the theme of the show. We slacks, shoes, everything that look professional, right? We say dress the part. You don't want to be dressed like a common criminal or a rapper or something, trying to get an office job where everybody wears suits. So you dress the part. Is it you dress like a social worker? I doubt it. Because a lot of the social workers that I see, they don't dress like trash. They just, slacks and like a polo shirt kind of thing, to prevent from doing like booty shorts and halter tops. But, I kind of outshine them in every outfit that I have. It is what it is. But I do dress professional. I do dress for ultimately the expectations of success. But I'm not dressing to be something that I'm not or present myself in a fashion that I'm actually not. That would be counterproductive to my alternative motives, because my initial motives is to be at the top of success to some degree, and my alternate motive is to have a long-standing image of success along the way. Yeah, happy Thursday night. I had to think about it at the top of the show, like, what day of the week is it? Because I've been doing so much stuff that I just lose track of time. But the promise of success that you get from doing the code switching becomes a deal where you trade pieces of your true self for acceptance. And that debt always comes due. So think of your brain like a computer's CPU. It has a finite amount of processing power. Every task, every decision uses up some of that power. Now, imagine running a complex resource hogging program in the background all day, every day. That program is called code switching. It forces you into a state of constant vigilance, sometimes even hypervigilance. You're not just doing your job, you're actively monitoring your own behavior. Your speech and your tone ultimately is modified. You're scanning the room, you're reading social cues, and you're calculating the risk of every single authentic expression. If I say this, will I sound too aggressive? If I share this story, will they think I'm unprofessional? If I relax, will they see me as less competent? This constant low-grade state of alert is neurologically exhausting. Research from places like Harvard Business Review has shown that this sustained mental effort is a direct line to burnout. Micromanaging, it's more than micromanaging. It is obsessive, compulsive micromanaging of yourself. So it's way worse, because see, micromanaging is doing everything on your own. But when you are excessively critiquing yourself, where nothing is perfect and nothing is acceptable, you tend to turn up the difficulty on yourself without actually having a reason to do that. And this is not the kind of burnout that you're going to experience that a vacation can actually fix. You've ever gone on a vacation and came back just as tired, if not more tired than what you were when you went out? Compulsive obsessive behavior, yeah. They switch them around, and OCD is obsessive compulsive disorder, but it's not really a disorder. It is just like you said, compulsive obsessive behavior, where you are in that order, a compulsive obsessive behavior, because you are self-triggering yourself to obsess over yourself, and it is going to modify your behavior patterns. It's kind of the simplest way to describe that. But this is going to show up as feeling detached, cynical about your work, having low energy, and being way more irritable, right? Your job satisfaction plummets. And the crazy part is your performance starts to decline. The very effort that you put in to seem professional actually hurts your work because your brain is just too tired. And the cost isn't just mental. The mind and the body, deeply connected. People don't really pay attention to this. This state of hyper alertness can trigger a chronic stress response, leading to a whole cascade of physical issues. We're talking about anxiety that feels like heart palpitations, consistent knots in your stomach that can lead to stomach problems like ulcers, and tension that is headaches that leads to migraines, and a weaker immune system, extreme fatigue, insomnia, unable to sleep, because you're still racking your brain over what if from yesterday until you start racking your brain about what if for tomorrow. You ever been laying down somewhere with all of the stuff around you off, and the only thing you could do is think about everything that's already happened and all the stuff you're about to prepare for? You can actually over prepare for things. It is possible. You're going to find yourself in situations where you feel physically sick, but you can't figure out why, because the cause is the invisible labor that you're performing every single day just to exist at work. He said, seek professional help. I mean, that could be one of our solutions for today, is to go get you some professional help. But ultimately, before we start throwing a bunch of money at professionals, because a lot of the solutions to a lot of the problems that I've covered on the show is talk to a therapist, or talk to somebody that you trust, that's not necessarily a friend of yours. It's not, might not be in your inner circle, but that person might be able to be somebody that you can confide in every now and again. The thing is that if you recognize some of the things that you do, and then you proactively start making certain changes to improve what you're doing and how you're doing and why you're doing, then a lot of the times the constant byproduct of your choice may just change on its own, because you're changing your behavior patterns to prevent from producing that byproduct. A lot of the times there's self-help capabilities. Now, in severe cases, yeah, go get you some professional help. Everybody can use and benefit another person to talk to, whether you're paying them or they're volunteering to hang out. But when you really start talking about fixing your shit, the therapist is not going to fix your shit. The therapist is going to be somebody that is emotional transfer. You expel all of your anger and frustration, pass it on to the next person, and then that's it. Now you are holding less weight on your plate. They have to find a way to decant all of the negative energy that they've absorbed from you, and then move on to their next patient. But you haven't fixed your problem. However, if while now you're not under an unnecessary quantity of stress, you start proactively figuring out how to fix your problem, that's when you start seeing solutions. When you're no longer overwhelmed by negative emotions, you can start finding solutions to your problems. The data shows that this burden of code switching isn't shared equally. One survey found that around a third of Black and Hispanic employees feel the need to code switch at work. For young employees between 18 and 34, that's about 35%. These aren't just stats. They are millions of talented professionals running that exhausting background program every single day. The CPU is overheating. The system's crashing. And you're left feeling like a ghost in your own machine. And this is going to be the part that might feel like a punch in the gut because it goes against everything that you thought you were doing right. You code switch to be seen as more professional, more competent, more trustworthy. And at first, it might even work for you. As we've seen, studies confirm it can make you seem more professional. You get the nod in the meeting. You get put on the big projects. You get the promotion. But there's a dark side, twisted paradox here. Because while you're building credibility with one group, usually leadership or the dominant culture, you might be destroying the same relationship levels with another group, people of your own peers, and even more terrifying, with yourself. He said, welcome to work. Well, sometimes, Michael, it's not just welcome to work. Sometimes, because when you think about in the workforce, people code switch primarily for the sake of getting and keeping a job. But some people code switch to fit into certain social circles. So you might have grown up in a poverty-stricken environment and behaved a certain way. And in order for you to fit into the upscale environment, you might change your behavior. We typically see this level of code switching overstated in local Western television. The teens in the high school where they go from being the nerd that nobody pays attention to hanging out with the cool kids, and they detach from their friends because they're now in the cool clique and all this other stuff. It's not just work, but the behavior does happen. Code switching can occur where if you're at your job and you work in a restaurant, you can behave a certain way at one table and then behave a completely different way at another table. If those tables are within eye and earshot of one another, you being able to change your behavior patterns for the other table might make the first table resentful. So you code switching can negatively impact your other relationships while you're utilizing that dynamic for your new or current relationship. When you constantly show a curated, polished version of yourself, you become inconsistent. The person your team sees in a high stakes client meeting might be totally different from the person at a casual team lunch. The language, the energy, the vibe, it all seems to shift, and people are going to notice that. So they might not call it code switching, but they sense that something is off with you, that you're not genuine 100% of the time. We're all actors in life. To a degree, we are. We are putting on some sort of a public spectacle of ourselves for others in society so that we can be accepted as whoever we self-identify as. So I can agree with that. To some degree, we are all actors in our own life. And the irony of that particular statement is that we're not always the main character of our own life. Sometimes we're a background character in our own life. That sucks. Now, the lack of genuineness is going to be the enemy of trust. There's a fear that if you slip up, people will see you as inauthentic. This can even lead to backlash from your own community. Research has pointed out that the acting white accusations, where people from your own racial or ethnic group might see your adaptations as a kind of betrayal, call you a sellout, right? They see you as someone trying to distance yourself from, quote unquote, your roots, and trust starts to break down between you and your old crew. They wonder which version of you is real, and they wonder, can I trust you at all? Or can I trust any version of you now? Right? Sometimes you just gotta get up on the stage. True, but the old saying, break a leg if you get up on that stage and exit in the wrong direction. If you have not fallen in life once, you have never lived. Yeah, I can agree with that. Logic dictates that, what do they say? The saint is just a sinner who fell down and got back up. It's a good saying. The fact is, you got back up. Doesn't matter how far you've fallen, where you've gone in life, the fact that you are here now, back on your feet, making it happen, you did what you had to do, right? So you got to be proud of where you are versus where you were. If you're on the upswing, if you're on a downward spiral, you got to start making some changes and do some damage control, right? Now, the worst part about losing faith in your groove, the act of code switching can sabotage your ability to build the deep, authentic connections that are the real foundations of professional credibility. Real influence isn't built on perfect presentations. It's built on mutual respect, vulnerability, and the trust that comes from people knowing who you really are. When you're playing a character, you keep everyone at a distance. You stop them from seeing the real you, and the you with unique perspectives and genuine insights that are the greatest professional strengths that you need. I told y'all that he was going to do that. There is Steven. It is about time. The show today's show you tagged, I had to reschedule that show for a different month so that I could do your code switching show for today. So with the day that you asked me to cover this topic, I replaced today's show with this topic. So you didn't hit the notification button on this show. You hit the notification button on a show that I believe I relocated to June or July because I put it back into the rotation so that I could get your code switching done sooner. Because I know when you asked me about it, I said, okay, I got to put it in there. But I had already had all of May completely filled up. So because I made the adjustment, any new shows that I add after you've hit the notification button, you don't go back in and recheck all of the shows every day. So you don't know if all of the next 5 or 7 shows have been selected for notification. But I haven't gotten to the part that answers your question because so far, first of all, Michael said, you're going to fall in life more than you will ever be successful. That's true. He said, hey, Steven. He said, I'm slipping. I'll start from the beginning after it finishes. Yeah. Because today we were supposed to be talking about something that had something to do with the women. That was what today's topic was originally supposed to be about. We were supposed to be talking about, I think the topic that was supposed to be for today is how to be successful with a woman that motivates you. And then I switched it for code switching. So today's topic, you didn't hit that button on. I haven't put up Monday's topic yet. So sometime tonight, I'm going to get it up there. So make sure that Saturday or Sunday that you double check and make sure that Monday is already hit. But because Monday's not up there, but Tuesday is up there. Tuesday and Wednesday is up there for next week. Monday, we're going to be talking about if Donald Trump runs a second term in a row, what that would look like, and how would that impact our money for the next 4 years? Because he has 2 years left, or a year and a half left of his current term and the alleged possibility of doing another 4-year stint. Technically another 2-year stint, but because the Constitution does in fact say 2 consecutive terms or 10 years in a lifetime. But there are no other details around it. So if he would have done 8 years in a row, then he wouldn't qualify for anything else. But he did 4 years, then he had a gap. He's doing 4 more years. He has the capabilities to do 2 more years after that. Even though the presidency is supposed to be for 4 years, if he did 2 years and he brought Vance on as the vice president, he did 2 years and then stepped down 2 years in and gave Vance the opportunity to run the final 2 years as president, and then he would still Vance finishing off his the second 2 years, he would qualify for 2 more elections, which means that Vance could then run for 10 years total. So he said, speaking about women, there is one in my class I might I might ask out. Yeah, that's where we get started. I'm not going to tell you don't if you like her, but you got to like her for all the right reasons, because a lot of times we look at the girl, we think, oh, she's hot. I can see myself sleeping with her. I can see myself sleeping with her on a regular basis. I can see myself living with her and sleeping with her on a regular basis. But what you have to do is you have to pay attention to what kind of mindset she has. You being 36, she's probably 24, 22, something like that. You have to find out what her goals are, what her ambitions are in life. Where does she plan on being in the next 10 years? So that you can decide if you're even capable of lingering in her presence during the timeline, because when she's going to be focused on building herself up, right? And because she's going to be focused on building herself up to be the best man that she can be, she's not paying attention to relationships if she's not in one. So in order for her to fit you in to her chasing her dreams, she has to determine if you have the values that will aid her in successfully getting out of college and potentially getting the job that she's looking for. Not saying that she's going to use you, it's just saying that you're not a priority. You know, if you're not going to be a burden, her mindset might be, let him swing. But a lot of the times you're going to find yourself doing study groups with her. You're going to find yourself accompanying her to college activities and stuff to that effect during your college years. And while that can work, and while you can have a relationship after college, and while you can get married and have a large family where y'all met in college and everything to that effect, the concern that I have is that you still have to figure out where you want to be at in the next 10 or 20 years. And if that location, figuratively and literally, is within the realm of her location. Because, not a lot of people go to college in their home city and state. Let's imagine she wants to go back to where she came from and she doesn't live where she's going to college. That kind of throws a wrench in whatever your future plans would be with her, unless you're planning on moving there too. So, yeah, you really got to get that part first. So my thought is that because you guys have a mutual location that you guys exist, instead of asking her out, this is going to be pro-status advice. Y'all go to school, to the same school. Y'all have the same class. The best bet is invite her for a study session on campus outside of regular class time. You can meet her in a food court. You can then find another location that's quiet, secluded, that not like completely secluded, but not distracted by a lot of people having activities and doing what college kids do. And then the two of you can talk, hang out, do your schoolwork together. One of the things that I found that is probable but it requires you to be bold and motivated about this, is for you to take over a classroom. Now, your tuition allows for you to utilize any facilities on the college campus for appropriate reasons, as long as you're not interfering with the educational process. So an empty classroom that you verify is not being utilized for teaching, that is an unlocked door for a full hour, you can access that classroom for that full hour. So if you wanted to grab some lunch and you and your colleague want to go and sit in this class, especially if the class that you have class in has nothing going on for an hour before class starts, y'all can like pick up something at the food court, come to class, y'all can sit at the class, y'all can sit next to one another, do a little bit of studying, talking, hanging out, maybe listen to some music, and then when the teacher comes in, y'all can start like getting tightened up and ready for work. And that would allow for you to get to know her better in a reasonably cheap environment where you're not exhausting anything more than your time. You get to find out not so much her history, but her future, and then pay more attention to if that is what you plan on investing yourself into. Now, once you get that understanding, then of course you can ask her out, because you guys would have established a baseline. Michael says, question, do you think money should marry money? That's an interesting question. And then he said the only appropriate thing that he said after that was student lounge. The student lounge is a good place to go. The other two places, I wouldn't even put them up on a screen because they're not appropriate for you as a person. I can give two shits about whether or not it's appropriate for her. For you as a person, it's not appropriate. For the other two options that he put up there, specifically because you want to know who you have in your presence before you start bringing them closer to your home. And then before you start getting physically intimate with the person, you need to be sure that this is the person that you want. So your question is, do you think money should marry money? So if you're trying to maintain generational wealth, it is more effective for a family background of money to marry a family background of money, because in a divorce, the division of wealth would leave everybody with the same quantity or similar quantities of money. However, if one of you has no money and the other one has money, when you divorce, one of you may have to give money to somebody else, and that is a complicated scenario to be involved in. So I do believe that once you get yourself a certain level of financial stability, that you should align yourself with people of the same status or greater. But the hypergamy theory only works with women, because women, no matter how much they make, always want a man that has more than her in order for her to be considered equal, because she's going to take control over his stuff. So if she makes 150,000 a year, she's only going to find value in men that make 175 to 200,000. So her making 100 to 150,000 a year, she's not going to have value in a man that makes 50,000 a year. She can do everything that he can do for herself 10 times over, because she's got it like that. And the Western culture women do not have value in allowing a man to fulfill masculine roles, even if she's capable of doing it herself, because of their upbringing. They grew up in a single family home. Mom did it all by herself. The women are going to grow up believing they can do it all by themselves, and then they don't know how to be a partner, because if she's got it, she's got it, she's got it, then what is he going to do? And that's when she finds herself in a position of, I can do everything all by myself. And that takes away from the value of the man. And then with the lack of value in the man, she loses respect for the man. And then she never finds a man that she's willing to stay with, which is a large quantity of issues. Now, Michael said, well, I invited her home and studied. Well, Michael, 35 years ago, 55 years ago, 65 years ago, you could have invited her home and y'all actually would have studied. In 2026, when you are inviting someone, when a man is inviting a woman to his house in 2026, not homework is the one thing you're not doing. Now, I know I did tell you guys about the first date where you bring them back to the house and y'all cook dinner together, because you're going to be performing an activity in the kitchen. But however, we also have to recognize that if you guys have a lot of chemistry between the two of you, y'all might find yourselves doing it in the kitchen. So, the fact that one-on-one personal isolated activities can lead to physical intimacy, it is inappropriate for you to have the mindset of inviting her back to your place when you don't know her name or her last name. Always set up something in a public place, a place that she's comfortable with, that she might be familiar with, a place that you as a man are safe in, because at the end of the day, you do not want to be caught in a position where accusations can be made against you that will compromise your success. Female doctor, and he's a doctor also. Well, a female doctor can find herself marrying a doctor. A female doctor can find herself marrying a surgeon. There are some situations where a female doctor might find herself marrying an RN, but a female doctor is less likely to be seen with a shift manager at a McDonald's. So you got to think about that real quick. Female doctor is less likely to be seen with a door hop, like the guys that hold the doors open for the rich, even though those guys make a shit ton of money, right? Valet Parker, stuff like that. She's the female doctors are not going to, because of the ego. He says, question, do you think people add more to a story than really is there? That depends on what kind of story they're telling. So if you're telling a story where you fucked up, you're going to leave out a lot of details. If you're going to try to pretend like it wasn't your fault, you're going to add a lot of details that deflects from the fact that you fucked up, but it wasn't your fault. Situation's out of your control, right? When you are trying to impress people, you will leave out minimalistically the things that would make you look bad, but you will add a plethora of things to the conversation that'll make you look good, even if you are exaggerating. For example, body count question alone. The rule of thumb is whatever a man says divided by 3 is the truth, and whatever a woman says is multiplied by 3 is the truth. So if a man says he's only been with 3 people, he was only with 1. And if a woman says she's only been with 3 people, she's probably been with at least 9. They both gave the same answer, but there's some false information there. She withheld her true count to be perceived as more modest and more virtuous. He exaggerated on his count to be seen more as a socially acceptable stud. So depending on what the story is being utilized for, depends on whether or not people add more to a story. However, will they project something other than the facts in order to win somebody over? Yes. Will somebody use a series of facts in a short period of time just to win somebody over? Yes. The dynamic is strange, and it's not gaslighting. You're just peacocking is what we call it, where when a peacock unfolds all of their feathers, and they're showing off all their pretty feathers to attract others, right? As men, we peacock by projecting ourselves, telling stories about ourselves, things that we've done that makes us seem like rugged, aggressive men, things that we've done, places we've been, things to that effect that will impress people, like a pirate telling pirate stories about himself, like a war veteran telling war stories about himself, right? So that's going to be one of the things that's going to change things. He says, if I'm in class with her, I'm sure we know each other's name. That's not true, Michael. So in college, in 2026 college, because I know that 50 years ago when you were in college, everybody was proactively able to get each other's names. In college now, everybody stays to themselves, sit in their own individual chair, on their headsets, on their computers, doing shit, writing notes, talking to the teacher, and then get up and walk out. They don't pay attention to the person sitting next to them until they're working in a class where the teacher assigns group projects. The only other time that you start communicating with other people in your class is when you're failing the class and you start looking for other people in the room who know more about what you are failing so that they can tutor you in succeeding. But you are only looking for a tutor to succeed in the class. You're not looking for another person to hang out with. Right? So in this situation, if Steven's been interested in the girl in the classroom, unless the girl knows his name because a teacher has called on him in the class a couple times, she probably doesn't even know who he is. He has to introduce himself, which puts them at the exact same dynamic that they would be in if they met each other in the street. The only difference is that because they go to the same room every week at the very least, or twice a week every week, in a college setting, she is aware of his existence if she has to pass him on the way into class or on the way out of class. He says some sugarcoating in the story. Yes. Now that's going to happen. Sugarcoating in the story. Hi, I'm Mike. I'm Mike. What's your name? Yeah. Now that's gonna be the start. That's gonna be the start. Introductions. What's your name? She's gonna give you a name. You're gonna ask for her number. She's going to offer her social media handle. And I'm going to tell you again, if you want to maintain direct communication with this girl and she's going to offer you her social media handle, I would just tell her I don't have social media. I appreciate it. I thought that we could, like I said, study, hang out, get to know each other, stuff like that, pass this class, move on like champs, stuff like that. But, I don't have social media. If she's not going to give you a number, it's all right. It's a pleasure meeting you. You said her name is Linda. It's a pleasure meeting you, Linda. Just walk off. Eventually, if she has any interest in you, she will circle back on your ass and she will offer you that phone number. But if she don't, no love lost. And the reason why I say it like that, because even in modern 2026, Stephen is 36 years old. Stephen and I grew up in an era before the internet. Even though the internet happened close to when we get into our adulthood, we have to recognize that social interaction started with face-to-face conversation. We didn't have cell phones back in the day when we were kids. We started getting cell phones at teenage, 16, 17, 18 years old, because that's when cell phones started happening. But we actually had landlines where we would talk to each other at the house. So I would just meet you places. So true. If he was to just say, hey, I can meet you here tomorrow and we can do X, Y, and Z, and we start with meeting one another in the same place at the same time, then start sitting next to each other in class, talk to one another and leave it on a strictly platonic scenario, that would be the most appropriate way to do it. And really, when you're doing any type of interaction as a man these days, it is more effective for you as a man if you are communicating with this woman. And after you finish communicating with this woman, you leave it on her to ask you for a number. Less likely she's going to do it. However, you will find that platonically interacting with women with no intent to get their number, no intent to see them a second time, no intent to progress this to a one-night stand, no intent to turn this into friends with benefits. It was just a good conversation and I'm gone. You will build a reputation of mutual respect in your area because he's on a college campus. This girl sees you respecting her personal space and everything to that scenario, not hitting on her, not making a pass on her. And you got to understand, women are going to expect getting the number means he wants to get laid. So getting her number is making a pass at her. If you are getting her number for the sake of class, it's less intrusive. But if you're getting a number agenda-wise for class, you are part of the class. And once the class is no longer a priority, neither are you. Because this is a relationship of convenience. And I've talked to you guys about convenience relationships plenty of times. So you're going to find yourself in a situation where if you don't set the dynamic correctly, you will be perceived and be putting yourself into a forcibly overbearing position where desperation might be sought. So if you just talk to the girl and you know, get her name and offer to meet her here tomorrow or the next time we have class, and you know, see where it goes from there. If she offers to exchange phone numbers and y'all can talk later, you're good to go. She gives you her number, you reach out to her, something casual, because you want to make sure that you reciprocate, but you don't want to push the relationship in any one direction. You just sit there and let it linger, let it fester, let it boil its own head, right? Because you know that you've got a woman of value if she's going to progress the relationship. Michael says, cell phones, no cell phones. There's a phone booth on the corner. Got a dime. Bro, before that, we had pagers. You had to go to a main building that had a phone in it. If you want to catch a girl, stop chasing her. Buy Mystique. And that's the truth. And that's why I said, like early on, I was like, yeah, I'm not asking her for a phone number, bro. But if you do ask her for a phone number and she offers you her social media handle, that's a dead topic. Now, back to this code switching topic, you'll find out that your credibility is no longer based on your skills, but on the quality of your performance when you do a lot of code switching. And performances are going to be fragile. The moment the mask slips, the moment that you get tired, stressed out, or just want to be yourself, the whole house of cards that you built comes tumbling down. So if the credibility paradox is about how others see you, and this part is going to be about how you see yourself. Every time, y'all remember to like and subscribe and mash those reaction buttons while you're here. Every time that you code switch, you send a subtle, powerful message to your own brain. The real me isn't good enough for this particular space. Each flattened accent, each swallowed opinion is a tiny betrayal of your core self. This doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow erosion of your identity. At first, you could see it as a tool, a costume that you can put on and take off. But over time, the line between the performance and the person gets blurred. You spend so much of the time playing the part that you forget your lines of your own real life, and you get home and you don't know how to turn work off. The work you stays on a regular basis. You start to question your own thoughts. Is this what I really think, or is this what I may have thought when I was at work, my work avatar, right? How you see yourself, how I see you, and how the world sees you. That's a saying that you said before. It's more to the magnitude of how you want people to see you, how you see yourself, and then how everybody actually sees you. Because the world is watching you whether you know it or not. It's just how much of it you wanted them to see. Turn to page 212. Inactive. Yes, inactive. It's not okay. So in some situations, it's an act. It's an act because when you're putting on a performance and you're not being your true self, it is an act. But in situations where this is who you really are on a regular basis, like the way I talk to you guys, this is the way that I talk to people. Actually, I'm probably more aggressive when I'm not on the show because I'm in situations where I got to prove what I'm saying is legit. Outside of that, I in my reality make it make sense to people who are not making it make sense, and here on the show, I make it make sense for people who come here for the topics that don't make sense. Now, when we're dealing with this internal conflict, it's a breeding ground for imposter syndrome. You're going to feel like a fraud because some level you are being fraudulent. You're convincing yourself that if people knew the real you, that the one with the different dialect, the different cultural references, who maybe different and doesn't care about golf, that they might reject you instantly. This fear of being found out is going to be heavy, and it's a constant weight. Is it so you're acting? No, I do not act. I don't have the energy to act. I have the capacity to press for the truth, and then I project that truth. And that capacity is a capacity that I carry with me everywhere I go. So the same suits and professional clothes that I wear in this podcast are the same suits and professional clothes that I wear in the street. So I don't dress up for this podcast. I wear these clothes when I leave the house. Now, the result of judging yourself and judging how society judges you, it's going to be a profound sense of being fake when you're on a path to recognizing that you're not being your true self. A healthy sense of self is built on the belief that who you are on the inside matches how you show up in the world. So when code switching forces you to betray your core self, to stay silent when you disagree, to smile when you're angry, it creates a deep internal clash. And this isn't just uncomfortable, it's psychologically damaging. This constant self-suppression can lead to identity confusion, where you lose touch with what makes you, you, and your unique perspectives born from your unique life that is your superpower at work. And it is going to be the source of your creativity and innovation. But when you spend years sanding down your edges to fit into a perfectly round hole, that you lose that particular power. The costume becomes your skin, and you're left wondering who you were before you even put on the costume. Even though you're acting, you are a good person. Can tell by your dog, it's feeding the love. Well, no, I actually don't act, as I said before. That's the dynamic. I actually don't act. So here's the thing. When you're code switching, when you're pretending like you're something that you're not, you're acting. If you've got a shitty attitude and that's the attitude that you carry with you everywhere you go, you're not acting. That's who you really are. So that's what you have to recognize. If I was a different behavior when I got off the camera, if I had a different dialogue, if I had different mannerisms, if I wore a different outfit, if I only looked this way for the podcast, that would be acting. Well, I guess you can say I am a poor actor, because since I'm not acting, I would definitely not qualify as an actor to be gauged on the realm of acting. I don't know how you could understand it any better. Because again, acting requires you to be putting on a show. And the live podcast is in a sense a show, but I am not pretending like I'm a different kind of person while I'm on this live podcast. So when I say put on a show, I don't mean start up a live podcast, you're acting on a podcast. No, I'm saying that your behavior pattern is not genuine because you want to be perceived a certain way. So you're behaving a specific way. That's acting. So a dumb person pretending like they're smart, that's acting. Oh, I know it's okay. I had to explain it quite a few times just in case a few of your brain cells were tired before the logic sinked in. Because I know that age kind of helps you or delays your ability to process some things. So I was just had to get it in there a couple of times so that you could understand. Because that's the true core of it. When you find yourself in situations where you're being judged after the fact. There are two brain cells both fighting over third place. Well, that's sad, because if you don't have one in first place and you got two fighting over third place, you're on a losing battle. Maybe Alzheimer's got first place, dementia's got second place. I know we reach an age where we forget, but that's what pen and paper is for. Write that shit down. Okay. It's crucial here to draw a line in the sand. Not all code switching is going to be the same. There is a huge difference between adapting to situations and erasing yourself for it. This is going to be the difference between strategic code switching and sacrificial code switching. So, Stephen, make sure that you pay attention to this part. Strategic code switching is a conscious, intentional choice to adapt without losing your core self. Think of it as being multilingual in the language of culture. You wouldn't talk the same way in a Wall Street boardroom as you would at a Silicon Valley startup. That isn't being fake, it's being situationally aware. A leader who adjusts their communication style to connect with a new team is being strategic. An employee who learns in industry jargon to communicate better is being strategic. The key is that these adaptations don't force you to betray your fundamental values. You're adding tools to your communication toolkit, not replacing your entire operating system. Sacrificial code switching, on the other hand, is a different beast. This is the type that is destroying you. It's about adding to who you are. And since you're not adding to who you are, it's going to be subtracting from who you are. He says, you got young guys don't know how to set notifications. These young bucks that don't know how to hit that notification button on all the upcoming shows. But y'all need to hit those reaction buttons for the entire show. So this is going to be a situation where you find yourself suppressing your natural accents because you've been told it sounds uneducated. This is going to be where you stop talking about your hobbies because they're seen as unrelatable. This is going to be when you chemically straighten your hair for an interview because you're afraid of natural hair that is called unprofessional, right? This is code switching that is driven by a need for psychological safety in environments that feel hostile to who you are. It's a different mechanism that is, unfortunately, a natural defense mechanism. An estimated 77% of Black workers and 66% of Latino workers say they feel the need to engage in this kind of switching driven by a basic safety and economic need. It's not a choice for advancement. It's a perceived necessity for survival. Sacrificial code switching is what leads to the burnout and anxiety that we've talked about because you are actively killing off parts of yourself to become accepted. Strategic adaptations is a skill. Sacrificial adaptations is a wound. And it's critical that you learn to tell the difference. While we often think of code switching as a conscious choice to fit in, some of its most frustrating forms are completely unintentional. It's not always a calculated move sometimes. Sometimes it's just an automatic reaction, a glitch in our social programming. You want to think about it like a teacher who spends all day with young kids. They might come home and without realizing it, speak to their partner in the same simple sing-song voice that they do with the kids. It's not patronizing. It's an ingrained pattern of behavior. Similarly, many people find themselves accidentally mirroring the accents of a person they have been talking to, or one that they're currently talking to. This isn't a conscious plan to build rapport. It's a lizard brain thing called the chameleon effect. When you start emulating somebody with a heavy accent, you start speaking with the same heavy accent. Your brain is just trying to create a social glue between you and the other person. The problem is that when you catch yourself doing it, it can feel deeply embarrassing, as if you've lost control of your own voice. You said we do that to our dogs. Yeah, we do. We talk to our dogs like we talk to children, but I don't go from talking to my dog the way I talk to children to talking to my father the way I talk to my dog. No, I talk to my dad the way my dad used to talk to me when I was a kid. Just use less curse words. My dog gets certain dialogue, and that's the only thing that's getting that dialogue. If I get 2 or 3 dogs, they'll all get the same dialogue, right? Now, we have to recognize there's a code switching that isn't about fitting in, but about making some money. This is going to be the code switching for cash. Think of the survivor in this scenario that is a server who finds that adapting a folksy Southern y'all and a bit of a drawl dramatically increases their tips. Survival. Is it their authentic self? No, but it provides a direct material benefit. Your dad still sees you as a kid? Nope, definitely not. I have been acknowledged as the authority, which is completely different. Some people who live with their fathers or hang out and spend time with their fathers or go places with their parents find themselves, no matter how old they get, forever retracting themselves to their 8-year-old self. I'm not one of those people. I have always been the leader of my environment. Therefore, I learned how to negotiate with those who have more authority over my situation than I do. But I would not be capable of imagining myself in the position of a dependent, which is what children are, right? I am always the personification of a provider, which restructures everybody else's interactions with me. Because if they're not an equal contributor to my expectations, they fall into the magnitudes of dependence, which then get the dialogue of dependence. It doesn't matter if you're my buddy way back when, it doesn't matter if you're somebody I just met. You're either equally invested or you're a dependent. Now, that says a lot because, ladies, if I'm paying on the first date, you're a dependent. You ain't gotta like it. That's just how it is. Now, if a server was to put on a front so that they can make some money, they're putting on a persona not for social acceptance, but as a performance for a customer so that they can get that money. This can feel less like a psychological burden and more like a work uniform. Strippers do this, call girls, escorts, um, you know, women who get paid for being nice, but then when they go home to their husbands and their boyfriends, they can't be nice to save their lives because it's a uniform. And when they take off their uniform, their fucked up attitude shines out at the house. It's another tool of the trade, right? But it's still going to require a lot of mental energy. And the line between a profitable performance and your real identity can get blurred over a long career. You've been working as a server, putting on a smiley face. When you find yourself in a room with more people that you don't know than people that you do know, you will find yourself being overly friendly, overly hospitable, catering to everybody's needs because it's a switch you just can't turn off. But let you be in a room full of people that you know, you're disgusted by their presence, you wish they would take their ass home, and you have the worst attitude out of the group. But everybody enjoys that because that's the real you, right? The reason that we code switch way more complex than trying to blend in. In a fascinating twist, sometimes people code switch to deliberately stand out. An entrepreneur might adapt a casual tech bro way of speaking when pitching to venture capitalists to seem more like a disruptive innovator, even if they're naturally more formal. A young leader might consciously use more assertive language, a clear switch from their usual collaborative styles to establish authority. Here, code switching isn't about hiding, it's about highlighting a specific part of their desired persona. Now, it can also be used as a social gate to create a private space in public. Bilingual speakers do this all the time, switching to a shared native language to tell a quick joke or exclude an outsider from part of the conversation. It can also be a tool for floor holding. By switching to a dialect only a few people understand, a speaker can finish a complex thought without being interrupted. Perhaps most profoundly, code switching can also be a tool for managing our own emotions. When we feel something intense, our brains look for the best way to process it. For bilingual or bicultural people, this can mean switching languages to tap into the cultural norms or emotion that come with that territory. For example, someone might switch to a more direct stoic language to be in a discussion that is a painful event. Borrowing that culture's emotional distance allows for you to be able to process that pain. Professional jargon or social jargon, social dialogue, yes. Or they might switch to a more passionate language to celebrate a happy moment. It's like having different emotional toolkits, using language to find the right container for a feeling that's too big for just one identity to hold. Now, for entrepreneurs, leaders, and anyone in charge, code switching is a unique and tricky balancing act. On one hand, being able to adapt your communication to connect with everyone, investors, employees, customers, whoever, is a superpower. This is a strategic code switching at its best. It's reading the room and tailoring your message to build trust to everyone or the majority of the people in that room. A founder pitching a bank will use different language than when they're rallying their development team. A CEO on the factory floor will have a different tone than when they're in the boardroom. This flexibility is often celebrated as high emotional intelligence. It shows that you can bridge the gap and create a sense of shared purpose. However, this is still a dangerous tightrope walk. The line between adapting and coming across as a phony is incredibly thin. So, if your team sees you shift your personality to dramatically between meetings, the trust that you're trying to build can evaporate on both sides. They'll start to question your sincerity. They'll wonder, is there a real you at the center of all of this? Or are you just a collection of masks? Right? The perception of being fake is a poison for a leader. Your team needs to believe your decisions come from consistent values, not from a desperate need to be a pleaser of whoever's in the room. Right? If we're people pleasers, then your values are not your values are somebody else's values. Right? So when your code switching is too obvious, it can be seen as a lack of a strong moral core. They will see you as a chameleon who changes colors to survive, not as a leader who stands for something. This is going to be the leader's dilemma. You have to be flexible enough to connect with everyone, but consistent enough to be trusted by everyone at the same time. You ever walked into a room and consciously start profiling someone? Yeah. There was this one room I walked into and I looked at one person. I was like, oh, yep, he's stealing. Because he was black. Yeah. I've walked into one of those Vietnamese Arabian stores, and if I see them for some reason organizing the product too close to where I'm shopping at, I'll look over there and I'll treat them like boys in the hood. How do you have a night? And no, that's not what I was here for. Is he living at home? That's a good question. Is he living at home? Now, it's easy to frame this whole thing as a personal problem because it does affect you directly more than it affects somebody else. You just need to be more authentic can be a way that people spin this, but let's let the real culprit off the hook here, because the pressure to code switch is not a personal failure. It's a systemic issue baked into a foundation of our professional world. You know, most workplaces, even in 2026, are built on a foundation of witness as the default professional standard. Whiteness, not witness. Let me go over that again. Most workplaces, even in 2026, are built on a foundation of whiteness as the default professional standard, because there's more of them than anybody else. The rules for what's considered professional speech, dress, and behavior aren't neutral. They are culturally specific. This creates an environment where anyone outside that narrow norm feels immense pressure to conform to it. And let's talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Many companies point to their DEI programs as proof of their inclusion environment, yet the numbers tell a different story. Even in companies with strong DEI initiatives, the rates of code switching are still very high, with about a third of the employees in diverse firms still feeling the need to adapt, which is the same third that we talked about earlier today. This proves that representation isn't enough. You can have a diverse workforce, but if the underlying culture still demands assimilation into one single norm, you haven't solved the problem. You've just created a more colorful pressure cooker. So the phrase, bring your whole self to work, has become a hollow corporate cliche. For many, bringing their whole self to work could be a career-ending move. What leaders often mean is bring the parts of yourself that we are comfortable with. The burden is unfairly put on the individual to do the work of fitting in rather than on the organization to do the work of creating a truly inclusive space. said, I'm told today being white is a minority. That's wrong. Special shout out to Blue. He said, Unc, I got a first date tomorrow. You got any advice? Yes, relationship advice is more given to you on Sunday when you have random questions on the show. Also, we do have other shows that we have scheduled for throughout the month that's going to be giving you information about relationship advice. So since you have a first date tomorrow, you've already passed. Matter of fact, you can actually go to like all of the first date shows that we've already covered. Just like type first date in the search bar, and every show about first dates is up there. But long and short, I would tell you is you've already asked her out. You probably asked her out because she's attractive. You want to sleep with her. So you're starting this off on the wrong foot because your motives are inappropriate, incorrect for your success, right? Specifically because you're going out on a date for a short-term gain. You're looking to hook up with this chick at some point. And you're willing to spend whatever it costs to hook up with this chick at some point. If your finances were tied to your long-term success and your mental decision-making towards this date was to determine if this woman was valuable towards your long-term success, then you would take her somewhere that costs very little, if no money at all. That is a quiet place where you guys can pay attention to each other, and you can determine if she holds some level of value outside of the bedroom that you can benefit in your life to meet and achieve your goals in a more effective fashion. If you're the kind of guy that is paying attention to giving her the things that she needs and promoting herself, then you are already halfway there. So she's guaranteed, if you're the good dude that's going to give her whatever you can give her and be that protective provider. The problem is she has to be the kind of woman that is going to reciprocate to the magnitude of making sure that all of your needs outside of the bedroom are met, because all women believe that sex has to be given in any kind of social interaction at some point. After a man does or spends so much money, women believe that sex is going to be expected, if not a social norm to be offered. You have to deter yourself from the sex and deter yourself away from your requirement to spend money and prioritize her personality and her character, and determine if she is the kind of woman that you want. Then you lay down the ground rules of what you expect in a long-term relationship and find out if that's something that she's willing to master. Also, in our membership, we have things like the girlfriend contract that sets the ground rules of how things go between the two of you guys, so that if she's going to follow along with these types of agreements, you find yourself in an easier situation because you now bind each other to an agreement of interactions with one another. So start with little to no money, and pay attention to like what your priorities are versus what she's willing to do. That's all just the shortest term, because today we're sitting over talking about code switching. Just the shortest term, that's what I would recommend for the beginning. So if you want to know like what I've already given out as advice is like one of the best days to have, which does cost a little bit of money, but it just depends on how you do this. If you find out what their favorite meal is, your favorite meal, y'all go to the grocery store together, buy the ingredients. Whoever pays keeps the leftovers. Y'all go back to somebody's house, your house or her house. So if it's your house got to be clean. Whoever has the most dishes to cook with, and utensils to cut stuff up with, that's the house you're going to, right? Now, if it's her house, she's got to be willing to allow this to happen. But we're going to cook dinner together. It's going to be the first date. We're going to go shopping for dinner, and then we're going to go cook dinner together. That's the whole date. You guys are going to work together as a team to make her favorite meal, to make your favorite meal, and then you guys are going to sit down at the table or wherever you're going to be at and eat together. This full-on activity should take about an hour to 2 hours at the grocery store to buy stuff, and then you guys are probably going to carpool back to the house to somebody's house, regardless of the travel time for that, it should take another hour to 2 hours for each person's food, which accommodates a 6-hour afternoon. And then you guys are going to eat together, which should take another hour to 2 hours, which is an 8-hour day. Now, that one date, though, you guys' abilities to work together as a team to make something fantastic shows that you have somebody that you can build with. And if you guys can do that without arguing, fighting, losing your cool, or whatever the case may be, then you've got to follow up. Otherwise, you've got a bunch of groceries. He said, that's what I'm talking about. Hello, Michael. For love, though, M, and eventually that. Michael says 56 to 58% is correct. I'm wrong, but by 2040, it may change. Interesting. He said, is his date for love or for sex? It's for sex right now, but eventually it's going to be for love. He said it the other way around. He said, no, it's for love. No, it's for sex right now. But eventually it's going to turn out for love, because most men don't operate on love. Your initial visual attraction to the person is a primal instinct for procreation. So you're ultimately attracted to this girl because you want to sleep with her. You want to get to know this girl because you want to sleep with her. And then after you sleep with her, if the sex is good, you want to sleep with her again. This is going to lead you into a long-term relationship because you have a consistent sex partner. It is a procreation thing. It is a primal instinct. You're not attracted to her because you like her intellect, where she's been around you talking. She's a smart person, and that's why you're talking to her. Because you could have a cup of coffee with this girl because she's smart and you just want to listen to her talk. If she was a capable person, you would want to be involved in projects with her, activities and stuff to that effect. But if you saw her from across the room, you saw her from across the street, you saw her down the road, you were outside, she was inside, she was outside, you was inside. She was in the car, you were walking, she was in the car, and you changed your direction of travel, your mode of intent, and redirected all of your attentions from what you was doing before you saw her to talking to her, getting her number, and establishing a baseline for a date. That was sexual attraction. So your initial contact is you want to sleep with her. Her initial response is, I might let him. So she's interested in going out on a date with you, but she's not in it for the right reasons yet. You didn't get into it for the right reasons, but after coming to tonight's show, hopefully you change your perspectives, because if you do, you're going to be more successful. Not necessarily more successful in getting laid with her, but more successful in whether or not you're wasting a lot of your money on a girl that is not going to be here forever, or you're going to deter yourself from a short-term chaotic relationship that is going to take a lot of psychological and emotional stress out of you, in addition to a lot of money. Because what we have been doing before I started this podcast a few years ago, men were buying their way into a woman's attention, and they would continue to rent that attention until they're married. And if they don't make it to the marriage, they rent that attention at a very high price. The more expensive the first date was, the more expensive everything else after that is. Then she has an upkeep. Everything that she wants, needs, and desires, you want to give that to her and buy that for her, take over all of her financial responsibilities to convince her to stay. But most men are doing this not because they care about the girl, they care about getting sex from the girl. Now, once the sex stops, that's when the men start complaining. But the fact is that if the girl was what you wanted, the sex could stop and the girl is still going to be what you want. So if you were in that for the right reasons, your relationship would be more successful. Because when you don't have it in you to do it anymore, as men, the older we are, the less our drive is. Our testosterone goes down and estrogen goes up. Vice versa for women, their estrogen goes down, their testosterone goes up. You're not going to be in the mood anymore. You might take a couple pills to get there, but you're not going to be in the mood anymore. You're going to be more willing to sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk about how great Total is, the cereal, than let's go do something strange in the back of the car, right? So By the time you get to that point, you're supposed to be in a type of relationship with a person that has no problem with hanging out with you. She should have been your best friend for life since she was young. He said, if the first date goes right, she'll initiate the sex. Right. But that's the thing, Michael. Again, you're coming from the wrong perspective, because your mentality is, if the date goes right, I'll get laid. The mentality is supposed to be, if this is the right woman, then I will be able to pursue a long-term relationship with this person, a long-term interaction with this person. I will be able to build things with this person. What you have to recognize is that if the date goes right, the sex is guaranteed. It doesn't matter if the date goes right or not. Sex is guaranteed. Maybe not from this particular girl, but very few men with a pulse can say that they haven't gotten laid once a year at the very least. And you might say, once a year, that's not a lot. You got guys that are getting laid every weekend. You know, the guys that are now getting laid once a year or once every few years are the guys that are tired of getting laid, because they can't remember how many people they've gotten laid by, because when they were in their younger years, they were smashing everything with a pulse. So you're still in a position where you're down the wrong path. If your goal is, if the relationship works right, you know, he said, don't talk about old dates. You can talk about old dates. It's not about what he says as a man. It's about what she says as a woman. Because as a man, he's supposed to be screening her to find out what her value is to him in his life. If he's only after this girl for a one night stand, you know, $200-300 date, take her out for some steak and lobster, wow her by the time, and then catch the check without her even having to argue about it. And by the time she finishes being wowed with steak, lobster, champagne, and all this other stuff, you get laid. You get the one night stand out of the way. But I mean, if you spent $300 to $500 for 2-hour conversation over some food, and then you get laid, you could have skipped the food and probably saved you some money and just bought the sex for $250. Because that's where escorts come in at. That's where the adult industry comes in at. Like Huey said from the Boondocks, it's like you're doing the same thing. You're trading money. You're trading money for her time, and sex happens. But the difference is that sex is guaranteed when the transaction is about money for sex, versus sex is optional when it is money as a quote unquote gift versus her ability to quote unquote gift you sex. So, I mean, at the end of the day, when it is not a direct transaction, the guy is the only person that's going to potentially lose out, because he's guaranteed to put up the money and she has the ability to withdraw the sex. But if it's a direct exchange, you know, she gets paid if she puts out. He said, my calendar was always full. Oh, yeah, of course, Michael. 50 years ago, your calendar probably was completely full during Woodstock and Burning Man. My calendar was full, too. I think up until, 2015? And around that time, I was like, nah. Start thinking twice about some shit. Now, when we start talking about the DEI programs, and how they're not effective, this is going to be more true in some companies that scale back on their DEI companies. So a recent survey found that 56% of employees who say that their company is pulling back on DEI also see code switching as a necessity. The message is going to be clear here as well. The safety net is gone and you're on your own. So this is going to create an uneven playing field where one group of employees can focus 100% of their energy on their jobs, while another has to use their precious mental and emotional resources on the exhausting, uncompensated second job of code switching. Now, we spent a lot of our time tonight, a couple hours of it, in fact, digging into the problem. So you might be feeling a mix of seen and completely overwhelmed right now. I completely understand that. But we're not going to leave you there. The goal is to reclaim your power. This isn't about some grand act of rebellion overnight. It's going to be a small strategic step to recalibrating your relationship with yourself and establishing your own authenticity. Yeah, that's right, Michael. Burning Man. First, redefine professionalism for yourself. You've been sold a very narrow definition. Question that definition. Your professionalism isn't defined by your accent or your ability to talk about golf. It's defined by your work ethic, your integrity, your expertise, and your results from whatever you put your effort into. You want to write down what professionalism means to you. Anchor yourself in that personal definition. It'll act as a shield. Second thing you want to do is monitor your energy like a battery. That feeling of total exhaustion after a day of performing, that's your authenticity battery hitting zero. You want to start notching not notching, but noticing and notating the interactions that drain you the most. Is it the big weekly meeting, small talks with a specific ex? If you're having conversations with certain executives. He said, good night, off the sales in the morning. Remember to like and subscribe. Appreciate you hanging out with us tonight, Michael. We'll definitely see you tomorrow. We're almost done, though. We probably got about another 10 or 15 more minutes. So once you know the big drains, you can be more strategic. Maybe you give yourself 5 minutes of quiet time before and after that meeting to recharge. You can even frame it professionally. I need to go heads down to focus, which is code for I need to stop performing so I can actually do my job. Third, you want to try microdoses of authenticity. You don't have to show up tomorrow as a completely different person. That's going to be terrifying. Instead, run small experiments. Wear a piece of cultural jewelry. Use a word from your native language with a trusted colleague. Share a small, real story about your weekend. See what happens. Most of the time, the world doesn't end. These small acts build courage and slowly expand your comfort zone while building a good rapport with the people around you. Fourth, you want to give yourself permission to be inconsistent. The same way I come to the show and I'm not always on time. It's become a routine. Right? You've been told that your persona has to be consistent. Let that shit go. You are not a brand. I mean, we can build one, but you're a human being as well. It's okay to be multidimensional. Reframe your code switching history not as a lie, but as a survival skill that got you here. Thank it for its service. Now you're just evolving that skill into something more meaningful and effective. Finally, especially for my bilingual and bicultural folks, actively seek out dense code switching environments. These are places where switching between languages and culture is going to be normal. In ERG, a community group, a network of friends, in these spaces, the mental cost of switching disappears because everyone's doing it. It's not a performance. It's a shared language. These spaces are your charging stations. They remind you that you are not broken, that you're brilliant. You know, if you are a leader or an employer, you guys got to listen up. You guys got a choice. You can keep benefiting from a system that forces you to and your employees to wear masks, or you can do the real work of building a culture where they don't have to wear a mask. First thing you got to do as a leader is you have to model authentic leadership. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. You want to share your own moments of uncertainty. Admit when you don't know something. Promote and showcase different communication styles on your team so that they know that this is good to do. And then when you champion diverse voices, you send a powerful signal that there isn't just one right way to sound like a leader. Second thing you do a bias audit of your company's norms. Look at everything. Does your dress code penalize certain cultures? Do your standards for professional communication favor one narrow style? I remember working on a job where I never wore the uniform. I made my own custom uniform and went to work and wore that because what I was doing better represented the company than everybody else. They didn't tell me nothing. I could do whatever I wanted to do, however I wanted to do it, as long as I did not bring down the value of the company. I set a different standard. And a lot of people wanted to get it the way I had it. So you got to question the unwritten rules. Why do meetings have to be run a certain way? Get curious about cultural assumptions baked into the organization's DNA. Third, move beyond performative DEIs. You already seen Donald Trump dismantle DEI in the federal government. Workshops are a start, but they're not enough. That's like going to a concealed carry class where they only let you pull the trigger one time and tell you that you're good to go. You've experienced discharging a firearm. That's not where it ends. You have to go and get it done after that. You've got to learn more about it. You want to truly empower your employee resource groups, your ERGs, to be agents of cultural change, not just party planners. Create brave spaces, not just safe spaces, where people can have hard conversations about identity without fear. And most importantly, promote underrepresented individuals into real leadership positions. Research shows a clear link between having diverse leadership and a reduction in the pressure to code switching. Finally, interrogate what you mean by bringing your whole self to work. Because I know when I was going to work, I was working on the kind of jobs where they used to tell us keep your bullshit at home. You're here to work, not to have a Jerry Springer episode. But bring your whole self to work. Are you asking for authenticity or are you demanding assimilation? The goal shouldn't be to make everyone comfortable. The goal should be to build a culture strong enough to handle the discomfort that comes with true diversity. Educate yourself. Confront your own biases. Your job is not to give people permission to be themselves. Your job is to create the conditions where they realize that they never needed permission in the first place. Now, we started with the idea that the performance that you've been given at work, the one that you thought was your ticket to success, is secretly destroying you. We've seen how sacrificial code switching takes a heavy psychological and physical toll, creates a paradox where you're trusted less and slowly eroding your authentic self. The story doesn't end there. The core message today isn't that all code switching is evil. It's about recognizing that the strategy that helped you survive is not the same one that will help you thrive. The performance is not just tiring, it's counterproductive to building the deep trust and genuine connections that define a truly fulfilling career. True power doesn't lie in your ability to perfectly mimic the dominant culture. It lies in the unique perspective and creativity that your specific life experience has given you. Your authenticity is not a liability. It is your ultimate comprehensive competitive advantage. The path forward is about being strategic with your authenticity. It's about making conscious choices about when to adapt and when to stand firm on who you really are. It's about finding and creating environments where the cost of being yourself isn't so damn high. Now, I want to hear from you guys. What's been your experience with code switching? Is there a specific work persona that you've had to adopt? Share your stories in the comments, because the more that we talk about this, the less power it has over us. Your story could be the one that makes someone else feel seen and a little less alone. Now, if this resonates with you, please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already done so, sharing this with someone who you know needs to hear this, because we are having a lot more conversations about building a career that is not only successful, but also sustainable and true to who you are. This is something that we do on a daily basis. And one of the things we try to build is an appreciation for your time and your courage. So that's what we got for you guys for tonight. I want to start off by saying, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. Now, fellas, I give you this information to make you guys higher value men. I encourage you guys to prioritize the things in your life that are inside of your control so that you can change the things that you don't like and then navigate around the things that are outside of your control. The goal is to improve your professional life as well as your personal decision-making skills because they are intertwined with one another. Ladies, while this is a male-driven podcast from the male's perspective, you too can make yourselves higher value women by fundamentally building your 20 to 30 year plan, knowing where you are, knowing where you're trying to go, and what you got to do to get there. Reverse engineering, that's what you have to do today so that you can start today doing all the things or some of the things that you need to do to be prepared for where you want to be at. Now, if you keep your eyes and ears open for the potential suitor that has the right characteristics, personality, integrity, determination, dedication, motivation to achieve those goals, where his goals are in line with your goals, even if they're not the exact same goals, now you have a partner in life where two people can get to $1 million faster than one, and you guys can accomplish those goals twice as fast. So I want to thank you guys for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I will see you guys tomorrow night.
Higher ground. Used to chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. Standing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. I'm not landing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. you.